The house near Fort Collins was glowing. A little too perfectly, if I'm honest. Lights in every window, candles flickering on every sill, ribbons curling from the staircase like someone had staged it for a magazine. Mandy had spent hours making it feel like Christmas. But all I could feel was the weight in my chest. I had just come back from the store, wind biting through my jacket, 2 heavy paper bags in my arms, the kind of errands no one thanks you for, groceries for the week, wine for her sister, a little something extra I knew no one would notice but would complain about if it wasn't there. That had become my place in the house, necessary, invisible, disposable. I'd barely stepped through the door when I heard her voice. I only want real family here for the holiday. The rest can stay home. She said it into the phone, casually, like she was talking about decorations or the weather. But her voice carried just enough to reach me, like a knife slipped just beneath the ribs. I stood there in the entryway, boots dripping onto the hardwood, snow still melting in my beard. The words echoed in my head louder than the wind outside. Real family, the rest, stay home. She knew I was standing there. She knew I heard. I walked into the kitchen and set the bags down. Cans rolled slightly inside the paper. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between us. "Are you talking about me?" I asked. She didn't even blink. Didn't bother with excuses or clarifications. Just turned slightly, still holding the phone to her ear, and said, "If you don't like it, you know where the door is." That was it. No shouting, no drama, just the truth laid bare. And in that moment, something inside me finally broke. Not with noise, but with silence. Not with rage, but with understanding. She'd said what she needed to say. She didn't see me as family. Not really. I was a stand-in. Provider, a placeholder in a house built on someone else's name. I nodded once, slowly, didn't speak, didn't fight. There was nothing left to defend. That night, after the candles had burned down and the lights on the tree had faded to a soft electric pulse, I sat in my office. The desk lamp cast a dull yellow circle on the stack of unopened bills and printouts. I opened my laptop. The email was still there from corporate. The Tokyo offer, a regional director position with housing and stipend. I declined it a month ago. Told them I had family obligations. Told them Christmas was coming. Told them I had roots. They wrote back kindly. Said they'd hold the spot a little longer just in case. Now, there was no hesitation. No guilt. I typed 2 words. I accept. Then I opened the folder marked household. Inside, a spreadsheet of every expense. Mortgage, power, internet, cell phones, insurance. Even the Christmas lights on the roof were routed through my accounts. All of it. Every inch of comfort in this house had been wired through me. I started at the top of the list and moved down. Logged into the utility company's portal. Canceled Autopay. Scheduled shutoff for December 28th. I gave them time to get through the holiday. I'm not cruel, just done. Next, joint credit card. Closed. Streaming services. My name. Cancel. Sell plans? Hers and the kids' lines all under my account. I transferred hers to her own billing and terminated mine. They could figure it out from there. Car insurance. I split the policy. Her premiums tripled overnight. Mine stayed the same. The house was in my name. I didn't want it anymore. I called my agent, told him to start the paperwork. If she wanted to buy me out, she could. If not, we'd sell. I didn't care. It was almost clinical the way I went through it. No anger, no heat, just a quiet inventory of a man backing out of a life he'd held together with his bare hands. Around midnight, I packed a bag. Nothing dramatic, just the essentials. Clothes, passport, the documents for my transfer. I left the rest behind. Let her have it. Let them all keep the things I once thought meant something. The couch I built. The bed I bought, the framed picture from our first trip to Estes Park, the one where the kids wouldn't even stand next to me. She could keep all of it. I printed the plane ticket. Flight 217 to Tokyo, 6:40 a.m. I chose the early flight for a reason. I didn't want confrontation. I didn't want goodbyes. I wanted the house to wake up and realize, too late, what had walked out the door. When I was done, I walked through the house one last time. The tree still blinked in the corner, ornaments catching the glow like memories too sharp to touch. Stockings hung along the mantel, hers, the kids', even mine. But mine was always hung last, like an afterthought. I paused there for just a moment, looked at the row of names. Not one of them shared mine. Then I turned off the lights, locked the door, and left. The drive to the airport was silent. Not even music, just the sound of tires on black ice and the quiet hum of a man who had stopped asking why. At the terminal, I pulled out my phone one last time, opened the smart home app, saw the house listed there, still active. I shut down the thermostat, the heating would die by noon. I disabled the security system. I logged out of the family calendar, canceled the grocery delivery, and then, one by one, I removed my name from everything we'd built together. The gate agent scanned my boarding pass. I stepped onto the plane, took my seat by the window, and watched the frost creep up the edge of the glass. As the engines roared and the runway peeled away beneath us, I felt no fear. No doubt, just silence. She'd wake up in a few hours, probably annoyed I wasn't in the kitchen making coffee. She'd assume I was sulking. She always assumed that, never once stopped to ask why. She wouldn't understand until the heater stopped working, until the bank called about the mortgage, until the credit cards declined at the grocery store. And even then, she wouldn't believe it. Not at first. Because in her mind, I'd always be there, always picking up the slack, always swallowing the disrespect and carrying the weight. Not anymore. I leaned back in my seat, pulled the airline blanket over my lap, and closed my eyes. When I woke, I'd be in Tokyo. A new job, a new city, a place where no one looked at me like a temporary man filling a permanent role. For the first time in years, I was going somewhere for myself. Not to escape, but to begin. The descent into Narita was smooth. Too smooth. Like the universe wanted me to have no excuses, no turbulence, no distractions. Just a clear path from one life to the next. I stared out the window as Tokyo came into view. A sprawling map of light and order, indifferent to everything I had left behind. By the time I stepped into the apartment in Shibuya, jet lag was pulling at the edges of my vision. But I unpacked everything carefully. There's something about putting folded shirts into a foreign dresser that makes it real. I wasn't traveling. I wasn't visiting. I had left, for good. The apartment wasn't large. White walls, floor-to-ceiling windows with blinds I didn't know how to work yet. One bedroom, but it was mine. No photos on the fridge. No stray glitter from the kids' old school projects. No reminders of a life where I was tolerated but never claimed. I spent the first few days submerged in work. The Tokyo team was efficient, focused. They didn't ask about family or holidays. They respected the quiet. I gave them my hours and they gave me space. It was a fair trade, but in the spaces between, my mind wandered. I checked the home app a few times just to see. The thermostat was still off. The security system still disabled. The fridge, smart-enabled, of course, registered no new items. The house was living like a ghost, and no one seemed to notice. Until they did. A week later, I woke up at 3:07 a.m. Tokyo time to the sound of my phone buzzing. Not ringing, buzzing. Repeatedly, desperately. "Mandy," the screen said. I stared at it. I let it buzz out the first time. The second. On the third, I picked up. Her voice was thin, like it had been stretched over hours of panic. Chris, something's wrong." I didn't speak. "Everything's declining," she said. "The heat's off. The lights flickered out during dinner. I tried to pay the bill, but the card got declined. And the other one, your name's gone. I called the bank and they said the accounts were closed. Why? Why is everything shut down?" I listened. "The fridge isn't working. The Wi-Fi is off. The alarm system's dead. What the hell is going on?" Still, I said nothing. In the silence, I could hear her breathing. Fast. Shallow. Then something else, her voice breaking. "Chris, please. Just tell me what's happening." I looked out the window. Morning was rising over the buildings, painting the skyline gold. A delivery truck pulled into the alley below. Somewhere, a boy was laughing on a bicycle. Life continuing. Life without me. I held the phone to my ear, and when I finally spoke, my voice was even. You said you only wanted real family there for Christmas, so I gave you that. She inhaled sharply, but said nothing. Everything that was mine, I continued, is no longer yours. That includes the utilities, the mortgage support, the credit cards. The house is being listed for sale next week. You'll receive a notice. You're kidding, she whispered. You're actually doing this. I already did it. The line was quiet for a long time. Then soft sobs. I didn't feel anything. Not hate, not guilt, just calm. The kind that comes when you stop waiting for someone to see you and start seeing yourself. I didn't think you'd actually leave, she said. I know, I said. That's the problem. Then I hung up. The calls kept coming for a while. Voicemails stacked like dominoes. Texts that bounced between confusion and fury. We can fix this. The kids didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Why are you punishing us? But I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to hurt her, because I had nothing left to give. Every year I stood in that house and gave. My name paid for the winter coats they unwrapped under the tree. My hands hung the lights, nailed the garland, fixed the broken ornaments. My salary paid for the food, the wine, the travel. I was the ghost that made Christmas possible. And yet I was never in the photo. They called me Chris. Not Dad. Never Dad. And I accepted that. I never pushed. I thought if I kept showing up, kept serving, kept carrying them quietly, the name would come. Maybe not on their lips, but in their hearts. But then Mandy said it out loud. Only real family. That's when I knew. She hadn't just drawn a line. She'd confirmed it always existed. And now I was on the other side. On Christmas morning, I didn't check my phone. Instead, I walked the quiet streets of Tokyo. The city was still alive. Not loud, not festive like back home, but humming. A different kind of peace. I stopped by a small cafe tucked between two bookstores. The woman behind the counter greeted me in careful English. I ordered green tea and a small pastry, sat by the window, and watched the world go by. Across the street, a group of friends exchanged gifts, laughing beneath scarves. They didn't know me. They didn't need me. But somehow, I felt more human watching them than I had in years. I thought about the Christmas table back home. Friends of hers would still come, out of obligation or habit. The dinner would go on, but without heat, without power, without the glow that money can fake. No Wi-Fi for the kids, no streaming specials, no catered dessert. I imagined Mandy explaining why. Maybe she lied. Maybe she said I had a work emergency. Maybe she kept up the illusion a little longer. But illusions cost money, and that account was closed. One of my old colleagues messaged me that night. Heard things were rough at your place over the holidays. You okay? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, finally. It's strange how quickly you learn to live again when you stop bleeding out for someone else. I found a gym 2 blocks from my apartment. I started walking more, listening to language tapes, learning how to cook for one, and enjoying it. I had thought the loneliness would swallow me, that I'd regret it the moment I heard her voice, that guilt would anchor me to the old life again. But nothing came, just silence and peace. On the 7th night, another call buzzed through. I answered out of curiosity, not weakness. Her voice was quieter now. No rage, no manipulation, just exhaustion. I didn't think you'd leave like that, she said. You told me to. I didn't mean it. I waited. I didn't think you'd actually do it all. The accounts, the house, everything. You wanted a line between family and not. I said. I just enforced it. Pause. Can we talk? She asked. Like, really talk? I looked at the suitcase I still hadn't unpacked fully, at the blank wall waiting for pictures I didn't bring, at the unread letter she had sent to my old office, forwarded to me unopened. No, I said. Then I added, talking didn't fix things before. Silence said it better. I ended the call. I placed the phone face down. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't dream of going back. I didn't expect updates, but they came anyway, not from her, never directly, but from the orbit. Mutual friends, coworkers I'd stayed in touch with, people who didn't know they were reporting back. They said the Christmas dinner was awkward. Something felt off. One guy texted, cold somehow. The house had power again eventually. She must have scrambled, paid what she could, maybe called her parents, or maxed the personal card I transferred back to her name. But there's a difference between light and warmth. Between having electricity and having someone who kept the house running because he loved the people inside. Apparently, the catering pulled out. Missed payments, someone said. The oven didn't heat properly. The pilot light had gone out, and no one noticed until halfway through baking. Her mother arrived in a coat and gloves. Said the place felt hollow, not broken. Hollow. That word stuck with me. I heard the kids argued. The youngest wanted to know why Chris didn't come this year. The oldest knew. He'd heard the phone call, the tension, the door closing. He didn't say anything at the table, but apparently he left early. Drove back to Boulder before dessert. Someone said Mandy cried in the kitchen. But no one asked why. No one dared. The thing is, when you make someone invisible in their own home, when you erase them in front of others subtly, consistently, with jokes and side eyes and absence of praise, you train people not to notice when they're gone. That's what she did. For years. And yet, now that I was truly gone, the void was impossible to hide. You don't notice the walls until they're gone and the wind comes in. She tried twice more to reach me. The first was a text. We can still fix this. I don't care what was said. Care about us. But what was said was the truth. It wasn't a mistake. It was the mask slipping. The second was a call I didn't pick up. I listened to the voicemail once. Her voice cracked halfway through. She started angry. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but it fell apart. She ended with, just talk to me, please. But I didn't. Not out of cruelty. Not for revenge. Because she made a choice. She built a version of family with exclusions, conditions, unspoken rules that changed depending on the room we were in. You're not their real dad when she needed leverage. You're part of this family when she needed money. And now, for the first time, I let her feel what it was like to live by those rules. She excluded me. I accepted the exclusion. And life went on. I found a rhythm, woke up early, learned the rail lines, bought fresh groceries every morning from the tiny market below my building. No one knew me there. No one asked where I came from. They just handed me a receipt, bowed, and moved on. That anonymity was a gift. At work, I took on everything. Meetings at odd hours, strategy decks, internal reports. I volunteered for the hard stuff. People asked why I pushed so hard, why I stayed late when everyone else went home. They didn't understand. I wasn't running from anything. I was running on clarity, on the relief of finally being cut free. At lunch one day, a colleague invited me to his family's New Year gathering. Said there'd be food, laughter, small children throwing confetti at the walls. I almost declined. But then I remembered how the house had felt on our first New Year's after I moved in. Mandy's kids falling asleep before midnight, her drunk cousin knocking over the champagne, the way no one bothered to include me in the family photo. So I said yes, and when I stepped into my colleague's home, tight, warm, chaotic, I expected to feel the usual ache, but I didn't. Instead, I watched his daughter give him a paper crown and laugh when it fell off. I watched his wife light candles and not once roll her eyes at the mess. I watched joy that wasn't staged for company or posted online for validation. And I realized I'd never had this. Not really. I bought it, funded it, provided the backdrop and the budget, but I'd never received it. One afternoon, I sat in a cafe in Chiota. Same corner seat, same quiet hum of jazz over the speakers. The tea came in a ceramic cup, no handles, no pretense. Just warmth between my hands. Outside, The city moved like clockwork. I opened my phone, not to check messages, those had stopped, but to open an old folder. Photos. Christmas 3 years ago. The one where I built the sled track in the backyard. 2 hours of shoveling. The kids laughed for 20 minutes, then went inside. No one thanked me. Another photo. Mandy holding a glass of wine, surrounded by guests. I was in the background, clearing plates. You could barely see my face. Another. The dog chewing a gift bag. The tag on the floor said, "To Noah," from Chris. The only tag that used my name. All the others just said, "Santa." I closed the folder. Then I opened the letter. The one she'd sent after the calls stopped. It had arrived the week before, forwarded from my old office in Colorado. I hadn't read it yet. Part of me hadn't wanted to know. Another part already did. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was rushed, uneven. Her words stumbled, tried to backpedal, tried to reach. "I didn't think you'd leave like that. I didn't realize how much you did until it stopped. The kids miss you. I miss you. Can we talk?" No apology. No ownership. Just absence trying to dress up as regret. I read it twice. Then I folded it and placed it in the drawer beside my return ticket, the one I never planned to use. People say silence is cruel, but sometimes silence is the only language they'll actually listen to. When the yelling stops, when the bank statements start to echo, when the heater doesn't turn on and the fridge is warm and the mortgage isn't magically paid, that's when truth comes to the surface. I wasn't her husband. I was her infrastructure. And when she called me not real family, what she meant was expendable. Well, I gave her what she asked for. A Christmas without me. A house powered by someone else. Let her see what that looks like. Let her live in the stillness. Let her explain to her kids why the man who showed up, paid up, and kept the roof over their heads wasn't there when it finally mattered. Because I won't explain it for her anymore. Some nights, I still wake up around 3 a.m. out of habit. I'll lie there for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside my window. It's not silence like it was back in that house, the kind that suffocated. The silence breathes. I'll think about that Christmas sometimes, the moment it all cracked, the words she said and how easily they came. And I'll wonder, how long had she rehearsed them? How long had I been the outsider, pretending to belong? But mostly I feel peace. Not joy, not triumph, just peace. Because I didn't run. I didn't scream. I didn't burn it down or demand repayment. I just walked away, calm, precise, dignified. And now, the house where I once stood invisible is learning what absence really means. You can't erase someone and still expect them to carry the weight. A month passed. Tokyo grew colder. The holiday lights came down from the train stations. Sales signs replaced the decorations. The air changed sharper, brisk, but I remained still, settled. Every day brought more routine. Wake up, walk to work, plan the week, shop for dinner. I grew comfortable in my own absence, not just from her life, but from the role I had played for years. That quiet kind of martyrdom people don't talk about. The husband who stays, the man who pays, the name behind every comfort. And then the letter came, not an email, not a text, paper, ink. Handwritten return address from her. I stood in my apartment holding it, unsure for a long moment whether to open it. I'd ignored the last one, left it folded beside my passport, unopened and unread. But this time, I slit the envelope carefully. The letter was short. "Chris, I didn't think you'd leave like that. You always said you'd never walk away without a word. Can we talk?" No apology, no reflection, just those same 4 words at the end. "Can we talk?" Like she still believed there was something worth salvaging. Like conversation would undo the fracture. I folded the paper. I didn't tear it, didn't burn it. I tucked it into the drawer beside the other one. That was the last time she reached out. No follow-up, no explanation to the kids. Maybe she realized the silence wasn't anger. Maybe she finally understood it was a decision, because silence is a form of speech, and mine was final. Some people assume that when you walk away from a family, you carry guilt forever, that the absence gnaws at you, that birthdays become knives, that regret follows every quiet Sunday. But here's the truth no one wants to say. If you were never loved for who you are, only for what you gave, there's nothing to miss. The love was conditional. The respect was absent. The gratitude was non-existent. I remember every moment I tried to belong, bringing flowers to her bedside when she was sick, getting up early to drive her son to school so she could sleep, taking her daughter shopping for prom shoes because her real dad was out of town again, paying for summer camps, birthday parties, SAT tutors. And always, hearing the same thing whispered behind closed doors. He's not really their dad. She never corrected it. Not once. And when the line was finally drawn, when she told someone on the phone that real family mattered and the rest could stay home, she didn't flinch. She meant it. So I let her live by it. And she's been silent ever since. I've come to believe some houses are haunted not by ghosts, but by expectations, quiet demands, shifting standards, rules that only apply to the ones who didn't build the place. That house in Fort Collins? I paid for the roof, but I was never allowed upstairs during arguments. I repaired the gutters, but I couldn't correct her son's disrespect without her stepping in to translate my words into something they'd accept. I hosted her relatives, grilled the meat, poured the wine, but wasn't part of the group photo. I was the scaffolding they built their comfort on. But scaffolding is meant to come down once the structure is stable. They never noticed that I never felt stable at all. And when I finally removed myself, the cracks showed. Fast. A friend asked me recently, over coffee in a tiny shop in Meguro, whether I missed them. I stirred my drink for a long time before answering. Not them, I said. Just the man I thought I was when I believed they loved me. Because that man was devoted. That man believed showing up would earn him a seat at the table. That man kept giving even when the thanks stopped. And when he finally disappeared, no one chased him. They only chased the loss of his money, his stability, his labor, not his presence. That tells you everything you need to know. Do they talk about me now? Maybe. I imagine the conversations. Chris left us. He didn't even say goodbye. He cut off the heat, the power, the credit cards. Who does that? But they won't say what they said to me first. They won't say, we told him he wasn't real family, because that would require admitting they drew the first line, that they erased me long before I vanished. I walk now, a lot. Tokyo's a city that rewards footsteps. I get lost on purpose sometimes, letting myself wander through narrow alleys, past small temples, under lanterns I can't read. Clears the head. Sometimes I think about the kids. I wonder what they were told. If Mandy said I left because I was selfish, or if she said I cracked. Maybe she said nothing, and let them figure it out by what stopped showing up. Groceries, bills, new shoes, the man at the head of the table. Do they hate me now? Or worse, do they not think of me at all? But then I remember the look on her face, the tone in her voice. You know where the door is. And I remind myself, she made that choice first. I simply walked through it. Every now and then, I take out the return ticket. I don't know why I haven't thrown it away. Maybe as proof. Maybe as a test of will. But the date has long passed. The seat expired. There's nothing left for me on that side of the ocean. It stays folded in the drawer, beside the 2 letters she sent. Unmoving, untouched. People will ask, why not go back? Why not forgive? Because she didn't ask to be forgiven. She asked to talk, as if words could patch what her silence built. As if she didn't already speak the loudest truth that day. Only real family here. I wasn't, so I left. And now, the silence I gave her matches the silence she gave me. It's even, balanced, final. A few weeks ago, I received a notification from the home sale portal. The house had finally sold. Market dipped. She probably didn't get what she hoped. Maybe she held out too long. Maybe the winter scared buyers away, but it's no longer my problem. The new owners repainted the shutters, cut down the oak I planted in the backyard, put in synthetic grass according to the listing photos. It doesn't even look like the place I held together for years, and I felt nothing, just a faint, distant satisfaction, like watching a ship you once built sail away without you, and finally realizing you never belonged on it to begin with. I'm not angry. That's the part no one believes. They think stories like this end in bitterness, in rage, in burning bridges and blocked numbers. But no, my ending was quieter, precise. There was no fire, just light switches turning off, one by one, until the house went dark, and no one knew how to turn it back on without me. That was my statement, not revenge. Not punishment, just silence, letting them feel the cost of the comfort they mistook for entitlement. So now I ask the question no one wants to ask themselves. If they can tell you you're not family, should you still pay like you are? If your name isn't on the wall, the tree, the stocking, but it's on every bill, every login, every emergency contact form, are you family? Or are you just the scaffolding? And if you are, you have every right to walk away, quietly, with dignity, and never look back.